organization that I could go back and find out. And that was the disadvantage or the bravado of youth, that I thought this was a great deal. One needs to look at all the aspects, and even when you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, as you said, ma'am, it's the ability to see across and ability to push through what you believe is right, and also realize when you have done something which is not right, and accept it and move on. So from that perspective, my answer to you would be that it's how the leadership at that big organization is. Are they entrepreneurs by nature or not?
So it's interesting, SN, but you also made a very interesting point that what Samir Jain said is also a mindset. As an entrepreneur, as an owner, he thought he can take the risk, but a manager who's working for his organization probably is not empowered to take that level of risk. So that's an interesting take. Also going back to your learning, leadership is also about knowing the implications of your work. And in a large organization, you have a support system which probably helps you see beyond what you are able to see with your limited experience. Praveen, coming to you, you are in a very unique organization currently. It has a backing of a large multinational, if I have to use that word, organization, but at the same time, it's in a very entrepreneurial setup. You're fighting with entrepreneurs who have a very different level of drive, probably very different level of stakes, very different level of rewards at the end of the day. How do you see leadership being very different in this setup versus what your previous organizations have been? And what's the empowerment that you have in terms of your ability to take risks as a leader?
So I think this question is also connected to the last question that we had in terms of risk-taking appetite for a bigger organization and a small startup, etc. My sense is I interpret it slightly differently. If I just observe the number of risk-taking decisions, definitely small companies and startups have a lot more number of actions that I would consider risky or entrepreneurial compared to a bigger organization. But the reason would be twofold. One is flexibility of a smaller startup in terms of taking those decisions and reaching out to the senior management. Two is in terms of the bureaucracy or the process which gets implemented in larger organizations so that they ensure that leakage does not happen. Because with empowerment also comes responsibility, and with scale of that empowerment, you need to create processes to arrest those leakages. Now, I have worked with Maruti, Microsoft, McKinsey, and different kind of culture. For example, Maruti has inherent Japanese culture, McKinsey has US culture. It's very different in terms of the decision making, the way we decide, the way we execute. But finally, both the methods and processes results in the right metrics that we want to achieve. Compared to other startups and Jabong, my sense is broadly things are not different in terms of the spirit and the people who came around to start. The only thing which, when you say MNC, I would consider it slightly different because we had that initial commitment that we will get investment if we meet those milestones. And those milestones were long term in terms of 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 18 months, 24 months, etc. With real startups, when you don't have prior commitment, that bandwidth gets spent in terms of in 6 months or 12 months, you need to go again to raise those funding. However, it does not make our life much easier because those milestones are ahead of what competition is, and hence the culture would be more or less similar, but co-founders spent on time in raising fund would be smaller. Two, in terms of empowerment and decision making, I think compared to older organizations where number of stakeholders, etc., and my designation was to involve a lot of upper management, etc., has changed. So for all my people also, we try to ensure that empowerment. But again, as I mentioned earlier, you can't scale empowerment unless it is driven by process which ensures that leakage does not happen.
Very interesting take. Vivek, coming to now a different topic. You've been working now for 20 years. What do you see and the times have changed. You know, when probably you would have started working, or some of us have started working, you know, we didn't have mobile phones, computer penetration was low, world was not as dynamic as it is today. Uh, how do you see the challenges have changed for leaders of that time versus leaders of today? What do you see? How things have become different? What are the changes which have environmental changes which has caused the leadership style to be different, or how leaders have to be different today versus what they were, if at all they have to be different?
No, a lot has changed. Many, minus the last 1 year, which has been bad for the economy. But we used to be a very small economy in 1993. We are a much larger economy in 2013, notwithstanding the slowdown that we are seeing right now. So the opportunities are much bigger right now. One thing which I have noticed is a change in most people, and when I refer to people as leaders, I don't necessarily refer to people who are up there senior. The fear of failure is going away from a lot of people. So I think all of you guys have a fair chance of going ahead and succeeding without really fearing for failure. Meaning, I have recruited people on LinkedIn, and they wrote in their introductory mail that they started an e-commerce venture, but they could not raise capital, and hence they're closing it down and are looking for people to recruit them. And I recruited both of them. Outstanding talent. There is a context. So there is I think what has changed in the society is that leaders can fail. So so the fear of failure is coming down. So I think one change that is coming in our time and age, people used to have careers in an organization, because like people used to join Unilever from the campus and pretty much remain with Unilever till they retired. Now I think the number of years people want to go out and check out somewhere else, because they don't fear failure so much. So I think one leadership change that has happened is that people don't fear failure. That is why a lot of people are choosing profession which is beyond just engineering and medicine, which we were like sort of herded into and sent. So the only difference that I have seen, and I think the reason is that the economy allows you to do that. I hope the economy gets back to the steam and it continues to allow you and the future generations to drive it. So I have only one difference which I have seen in leaders is that fear of failure has got significantly reduced. Stigma of failure is almost absent right now. So if somebody is a failed entrepreneur, somebody is sitting at home without a job, somebody is still raising capital and not able to do it, somebody is doing something else, so the fear of failure and the stigma associated with it is gone. So there is neither shame nor guilt of failure. I think that is one thing which I have noticed. There would be several other things, but that's the one which clearly hits me when I see people I recruit for the next level of organization.
Praveen, for you, how things have changed for leaders from the time when you started working to how you see things today when the world has changed a lot?
So, adding to that, that's a very good observation in terms of that fear of failure and risk-taking appetite of the current generation is much higher than what it used to be. Second, I would say that the relationship, even the professional relationship, is no more pure transactional relationship. You have to groom, you have to give them something in return in terms of their career development for the bright and the ambitious talent to stay with you. Third, I would say that overall, the staying period with an organization is reducing, and hence that even after grooming, creating that next level of opportunity for the leaders is the next big challenge or next big shift. Fourth, I would say that the rule of chair is going to get diminished going forward. It has already reduced. For example, if I am the managing director and I just want it to happen, the right talent will ask the logic behind it. They would like to be convinced rather than just executing, which I think is a very good development in the whole system of interaction.
So, Praveen, you talked about there's much less fear of failure, there's much higher risk appetite. You can't lead just by being in the position. You have to earn the respect. You have to justify yourself. And I think That's a very interesting point. SN, what's your take on this? How things have changed, and what are these some of the traits that you've been also experienced in your
I thought when both my panelists tried this question, I thought when my turn comes, I'll study too. And it's so true that the fear of failure is gone. 10 years back, the thought of pink slip was scary for people. And then, thanks to the dot-com burst and people being without jobs and people trying out new things, the fear of pink slip went away. I see lots of people within my organization who want to leave the organization and start something of their own. And that too when the economic situation is not the best, but they believe in something. I think what is the best part of being young today is the opportunities that there are available for everyone and how they believe that they can be good in whatever they want. There was this guy in our office and he was very interested in writing plays and other stuff. I mean, that's what he used to do in his spare time. 4 years back, he just decided that I'm going to become a playwright and a scriptwriter. And that's what he's doing full time now. And for his daily thing, he goes to, there's this comedy club in Bombay, and he goes and performs every Thursday 2 hours in the comedy club. So that's where he gets his daily bread, so to say. But he writes scripts, he writes plays, and he's perfectly happy and comfortable in that space. And so the biggest change that I see is the mindset. Biggest change that I see is not to be scared to do something that they really passionately believe in. And all the best wishes to that, and may that drive increase, because that's the way to go forward. And I think that's the only way forward. There's no other way that I can see.
So before I hand over, I will ask the students to ask the questions. Vivek, any closing thoughts that you may have?
No, I think pretty much everybody is building around the thing that things are changing, and it's in a context that you should be like a leader, and all of us are leaders and all of us are followers. But what we require as future is with people like you, that all of you should feel empowered about what is your calling, and whether it's about becoming a playwright or whether it's becoming a best lawyer, but never feel that you are not in control. Even if you are scared, that scary situation should also be under control. That's all. You are always a leader in a situation.
Naveen, your closing remarks?
I would see, if I just compare globally and India, we see a lot of graduates and postgraduates dropping out of college to follow their dreams, and we see not one but multiple success stories there. But in India, that story has yet to be built. We had Narayan Murthy as first big name in the middle class family to start something of his own and making it big. We need few students to take that dip. It's not going to be easy, but I think as a culture we need to incorporate that. For example, fear of failure, which has started reducing. Why can't? And the college is the right place because you have right set of team, bright people coming together, a lot of spare time if you are bunking your classes. So definitely, if you can follow your passion and create something that before you graduate you have something of your own which can create wealth and create employment, that would be great.
SN, what would your closing remarks?
My closing remarks would be, as Vivek said, you are the leader in your own space, and don't forget that. For example, what you know about this institute is more than what we guys sitting here know. So you are a leader as far as that is concerned. Similarly, when you go out and if you really believe in something, you are very lucky to be born at a time when you are seeing so much of growth and so many opportunities, and that's something to be nurtured. I think entrepreneurship should be pushed. Try out something. When you are young, you can try out something. When you start growing old, you are more scared of the failure bit, and you require to be a bigger leader within your own self to take that leap. Right now, you guys are young, as Praveen is saying. If you have a dream, go ahead, build that dream and just try. Even if you fail doing that, you would have learned something which life cannot teach you otherwise. So just go ahead, be fearless and just go ahead.
Thanks, SN. So, as I understood, just to summarize some of the things that we talked about leadership being a mindset, and it's not a position which is given to you by your organization. SN talked about leader has to be a dreamer, somebody who has to set the agenda, and Praveen talked about the dreamer, and SN talked about that, you know, there is still an agenda needs to be driven by somebody for rest of the organization to follow. Praveen also talked about that leadership is, you may be a leader in one aspect and you may be a follower in other. Then we talked about how things have changed over a period of time, how there is ample opportunity for everyone to follow, how world is throwing up different opportunities for young people like you are sitting here, fortunate to be born at a time when world has really changed and full of opportunities. We talked about how the fear of failure should not be there because it's no longer a stigma. It's seen probably as your ability to take risk and try out something what you passionately believe in. So that's what I think pretty much summarizes what we talked about. I would be happy to have you guys ask the question to all the three panelists here, and I'm sure you can benefit from their experience, their learnings, and their diverse backgrounds. So, to you, please, you can raise your hand and ask the question. I think it's a small enough room and the voice can reach here, otherwise we can pass on these mics.
Somebody has to become a leader here.
I would like to begin with a clarification. I mean, possibly I might be incorrect. This is to Mr. S.N. Bhaduri. You spoke about, you defined leader as somebody who gives a direction, somebody who's the one who decides the path. And then you gave that example which put me in a situation where I was compelled to get this clarification. You spoke about leader as a decision maker also. Now, I was not too comfortable with this because as a leader, as far as I understand, possibly, I mean, it's any day less than what the forum which of understanding which you have. As a leader, can I be a decision maker or can I just be a guiding light to gather people in that path which I think is collectively decided? I'm not too clear about that.
Great question. To me, decision making is a critical piece of a leader because in life, in business, in day-to-day this thing, there are too many choices that are coming. A good leader has to have an open mind to listen to the feedback or listen to the options available. But then finally he needs to take, I mean, most of the time we do not have the advantage of looking forward and seeing this will work or this will not work. But there is a decision needs to be taken that, okay, this is what I think is the best option out of these 4 or 5, and this is where we are going to put all our effort to become successful. And that's where I think a leader has to be a decision maker so that once that decision is taken, everybody puts their mind and effort into achieving that goal. I'll go back to my times in Hindustan Times when Amit was also part of the leadership team and I was also fortunate enough to be part of that. And the CEO, this was a weekly meeting and it used to be a really open house where there used to be all kinds of points discussed. There were counterpoints and everything, but at the end of the day, the CEO used to say, this is what we are going to do. But that decision needs to be taken. If the decision is not taken, again, anecdotal. My father-in-law is building a house and he has got 3 daughters. And all 3 daughters have got different view of how the house should look. And my father-in-law is the biggest Democrat. And all 3 of them are veto powers. And nothing is getting built. Somebody needs to take that call and say, this is the way we are going to go. And that is also part of leadership.
I was, may I?
Please.
I was only uncomfortable with, this is, yeah, Mr. Praveen Sinha. He very, I mean, something which suits me, he spoke it that way, as in he said, we decide, we execute. So that we element was giving me a much more comfortable zone to, channelize myself into that, a sense of belongingness, that I'm a part of this structure. But then when it says, I decide, that ultimate power of in that hierarchy was somehow just making me.
I think that's my lack of ability to communicate. I didn't mean I in that sense, but at the end of the day, there needs to be somebody who takes the decision, because in a group, lots of people would have different views on how to go forward, but that one person needs to take that call. It need not be that, I mean, chances are that that call that he's taking is from an informed opinion, and there is a big part of the group which feels that is the way forward, so that is the decision that he's taking. But to an extent, the buck stops there. I mean, he has to take that risk and say, okay, I'm taking the call. If anything goes wrong, I'm responsible. So it's very important for that I to also be there to say, this, I'm not scared. I'm not going to say that this decision that we took was a collective decision, so I should not be blamed if anything goes wrong. He should put his neck on the line. He should put his money where his mouth is.
I think the important thing to remember is it's not a black and white world. It's a grey world. There's no one single leadership model, or there's no one single leadership style. There is a Steve Jobs at one end of the table who decides everything, and he takes the decision, he takes the call, or he used to take the call, and he used to take that ownership as well. Versus there are leaders who go by collective wisdom and try. But I think the point that SN is trying to say, there will not always be a situation, there will be a consensus around the path to be taken. And somebody then has to take that ownership of what path to choose out of various options available, and also own the consequences of taking that path. That's the role of a leader. I think that is what SN was talking about. Any other question? Yeah.
Typically, we have discussed, say, tier 1 companies, large size companies, and startups. How critical is entrepreneurial skill of an individual to, say, success or failure of a mid-size company? I mean, where their systems have just got in place, they've not been there for very long, and the company is just scaling up. So a typical mid-size company, how critical is entrepreneurial, and how much is the capacity to absorb those skills from people who join?
Vivek, would you like to answer? You work with Living Media, which I would classify as a mid-sized company, and now you are a startup, so you have an experience of both.
See, my own sense is that the guys that you refer to as the mid-sized company, we are about $250 million kind of a turnover. They are actually at the sweet spot of entrepreneurial journey. But it all depends on the team that is there to execute it, and how much belief, and it's about the life cycle of the promoter. So if the promoter is in a life cycle which is early, or his next generation has taken on, so it also depends on a lot of other factors. But as far as I personally feel that they are at the sweet spot where they could actually get up to the next level altogether. Because they don't have a chance of closing down like a startup has. They don't have a chance of, they don't have also got troubles like a large multinational which has to take decisions which could be in Singapore or London or New York or wherever it's. So I think these guys are the ones who really have the chance of leading to the next level. So my sense is just the opposite. These are these companies which are going to be the leaders of the future. There will be startups which will also be leaders of the future, but these are people who are normally at the sweet spot, but a lot of them end up being neither here nor there, and they just pretty much stagnate at that point. But that's their choice. It's not because of the size that they have. Most of them at that level are bottom line positive, so they are not looking for external funding at this stage. They don't have too many people to answer to. They would be largely private, not public. I think they are at the sweetest spot. But that must be realized by the people who own that business. And if they realize that, they get into unrelated areas and they become very large businesses.
adding to this, when in such a kind of a field, the people who are a part of this, me not being the one who is actually, the entrepreneur who's invested everything into it, but then when I take in people to make my field grow, can I actually afford to have those who have this element of entrepreneurship in them? Because I need those people who are conventionally going to be my loyalists for another decade or so, because I need that sense of belongingness, because till the time that belongingness is there, I don't, that's my understanding that will I actually be able to make that field grow further?
I'm not a big believer in conformity and culture, but that could be me. Because I personally feel that conformity and culture only works well for armies. And armies are supposed to kill people. I mean, I don't prescribe to that view. So I personally feel that if you want to build an organization which is successful and lasts beyond your own lifetime, you've got to have people which are non-conformists. Not only you, but a whole lot of people who are non-conformists. Then what will happen is, if the situation is faced by the company which is completely new and has not been seen before, if you have a team which is fairly non-conformist, the chances are they will get to a solution. This is my personal belief. I don't have a data point to say one way or the other. But otherwise, most of the organization end up being one-trick pony, because they just get people who are more loyal than the king. So I personally have a bias for saying that don't drive culture from the organization. If it happens to get formed, it's fine. But two things is, one is that don't try and hire clones of you, because then those clones can only handle delta more than what you can handle. So I would
trap to fall into, to hire people who are sort of clones of yourself. But answering your question of I need a loyalist for 10 years, 15 years, that also is a human resource question. I mean, in the sense, I don't look at loyalists. I mean, he spoke about the army. I would say dogs are loyal. We are all doing the best for ourselves. And we also, I mean, when we are working for an organization, there also we are trying to see how it is helping us, whether in the passion that we bring to the job, or whether it's a monetary advantage or whatever else. That's where human resources come in, and that's where a true leader is able to identify that this person is adding value to the organization in more than the delta that could be added by anybody else. And if he's really good, give him that opportunity of doing something within the organization which can add value to the organization. Whether it's the stuff that Google does, where 20% of your time you can spend on creating something that you're passionately believe in, or I'm sure everybody has some way or the other of identifying or giving more responsibility to better people. That's where HR also comes and plays a huge role.
One last question before we close. Yeah.
So my question is that there are sometimes too rigid an organization. You know, as an organization has a particular diktat for all those who are in any position in that organization to follow. But then sometimes there might be this dilemma that you feel that this is something that I need to do for this organization to prosper. Something that you really feel, something that you feel can completely overturn the scenario, that can really take that organization scaling high. However, according to the what you can say the 10 commandments of that organization, it is not allowed. So how does a leader work out in such a situation?
You have a question to any specific panelist, or anybody can answer?
I would like Mr. Vivek to answer.
Meaning, if you consider yourself as a leader, I mean, I'll give you the most starting job, and all of us do it. All of us have people who do it in the service industry. Is a call center executive job. Now there are a number of call center executives. I have about 90 of them who take calls, but there are only 3-4 of them who earn the appreciation letter. Not from me, not from the people who directly employ them, but from the customers themselves. So they have gone beyond the calling because they have found out a way to actually work in a situation which would be much more beneficial to Brad Yeppe than all other people. So you will have only those things to do and happen. If you are passionate about something and you really don't find that your organization is not going to give it to you, you guys can go and listen to this lecture by one of the Harvard professors of Indian origin. The name is slipping by. He says, quit early and quit as many number of times. So if you think that the organization is not the place, not all organizations are built for you. So he says that if you get into an organization which you think is not able to carry your ideas, quit early, quit fast, move, find out. He says he left some 6 jobs in 9 months. I'm not saying that all of you should do it, but I quite like the idea, the way he actually presented it. And so I'm saying that there's no solution everywhere. So if you face, you can make a difference in whatever job you do, whether it's a call center executive or whether it is the CEO. You can make that difference. And you can make that difference by showing the organization that call center executives are the ones who build the brand. For example, Zappos. Zappos got built by people because the way they handle the customer care function. And everybody had to spend time in customer care, from CEO downwards, before they actually came to their desk to work. So it's not about that you can't make a difference, but it's also not about that in all organizations you are allowed to make a difference. So quit early, quit fast. And you are in a economy which allows you to do that. But one downside I must point out to people who are youngsters like you about quit early, quit fast is not have a mindset, hey, I don't care about this job because I'll get another one. Because then what happens is you will never get the job that you care about, and the life will not care about you. It's not because you have an opportunity at this level, you'll move to the next level. This is one trait that I have seen, because there's no fear of failure. People are actually becoming not leaders, but they're becoming shortcuts. So I'm saying a lot of you should introspect, that a lot of you don't care about your jobs. And I'm telling you, job is not, we do for obviously putting, as he said, bread on the table, but it's all about satisfying your egos. So if you think your ego gets satisfied by saying, yeah, I don't care for this job, I'll get another one, that's a different way to look at egos. But if you think that there's something that you can make a difference to the world, and that drives all the leaders, whether it is the greatest leaders on political spectrum, or on business spectrum, or on social spectrum, or on spiritual spectrum. And let me tell you, the impact that people make, if you look back on history, who are the leaders who have survived the test of time? Nobody remembers the richest man during Akbar's reign. Does anybody remember? People remember the spiritual leaders that happened, because they make the life of people different and make people think differently about a situation and come out of it. Next level of people are the rulers. Then comes the people who had the money bags. Then comes the people who work for them. So I'm saying you got to decide. I'm not saying you become spiritual leaders, sorry. But I'm just saying that it's about what you want to be and how much long-term impact you can have. So the short answer is that if you get what you want to do, you can try and do that. Not organization will help you do that. Go ahead and watch this YouTube video by Professor Malhotra, I think his name is. Quit early, quit fast, and he talked about this to the Harvard graduating batch. One of the highest viewed videos in that category. It's interesting.
Thanks, Vivek. We would probably now close the discussion. Thanks, Vivek. Thanks, Praveen. Thanks, Hassan. I think you guys had a very interesting take on the entire issue of leadership, entrepreneurship, and what's happening in the world today in the area of management and leadership. Thank you for your time. Thanks.
On behalf of Delhi School of Business, I'd like to thank Hindustan Times as well as all the individual speakers here today, Amit, Garg, Vivek Gaur, S.N. Bhaduri, and Praveen Sinha. We have been talking a lot about leadership and understanding the scope of the leadership and how to implement it in different kinds of situations. Right through listening to everybody, a small story came to mind, which was that of NASA and JFK. NASA today, I don't think anybody can clearly tell you what their mission is. But in 1960, JFK said that the mission of NASA is to put a man on the moon, no women, put a man on the moon and bring him back safely by the end of the decade. It was a very, very simple mission statement which everybody could understand. And the interesting thing was there was a cleaning lady was asked, what is her job? a cleaning lady at NASA. And she said, I'm working to put a man in the moon, so this room has to be really clean because it's a clean room. She knew what her job was. So, in a sense, capturing the essence of the purpose of organization is also a great part of leadership. And unfortunately for NASA, after that mission, if you think about it, they've had difficulty defining their mission as being separate from any of the other private companies that are in the space program of delivering communication satellites into Earth's orbit. Beyond that, what are they doing? But in the 60s, they knew what they were doing. Okay. So I just want to thank you for creating a lot of, getting minds moving, and also giving your time, given your busy schedules, to spend the time with young people so that they can think about how you got to where you are and the issues that you have faced. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Allah.